Okay, let's just jump right in. We've got a piece of media that is basically a firestorm in a bottle. It's a YouTube script from Central NFL News, and it's all about the Kansas City Chiefs.
And if you've been anywhere near the internet lately, you know the vibe. It's full-on panic mode.
Full-on panic. The Chiefs just finished 6-10. They missed the playoffs. And the big one, the catalyst for everything, was Patrick Mahomes tearing his ACL.
Yeah, and the consensus narrative out there is pretty clear. The dynasty is, and I think the quote they use is, dead and buried.
Dead and buried. So our mission today isn't to just, add to that noise. We're going to do a deep dive. We want to cut through the hot takes and find out what this whole frenzy is actually built on.
Exactly, because the source we're looking at makes this incredibly audacious claim. They're predicting a massive revenge tour in 2026. They're not just saying the Chiefs will be back, they're saying they'll be on the throne again.
A revenge tour. And they frame this disastrous season as just a timeout.
A timeout. So we have to figure out how they get there. What specific stats, what roster holes, what historical facts are they using to back up this incredibly bold vision? We need to see what this whole thing reveals about the pressure points on a modern NFL dynasty.
So let's start with the collapse itself, because the source really paints a picture of just pure cognitive dissonance for fans.
Right. It reminds you that just a year ago, this team was coming off back-to-back Super Bowls. They were talking three-peat.
And now they're 6-10 with a top 10 draft pick. It feels like an alternate universe. But the source points to one number, one specific statistical flip that tells the real story.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. They point out the Chiefs went from being money in one-score games, I mean the absolute best in the league at closing games
They're
out.
clutch kings.
Exactly. To a brutal, almost unbelievable 1-8 in those heart stoppers.
1-8. That one stat basically flips their entire win column on its head.
It's the whole story. I mean, that shift right there is the difference between a 14-win team and a 6-win team. The source says this is parity hit the NFL like a truck.
But they don't stop there. They say parity was a factor, sure, but the real reason the wheels fell off was the gut punch of Mahomes tearing his ACL.
So you get this perfect storm. The bad luck in close games hits right at the same time as the catastrophic injury.
So, okay, let's unpack that for the listener.
Yeah.
How does a bit of bad luck in close games and one injury, devastating as it was, instantly create this narrative that a whole dynasty is dead and buried?
That's the core question, isn't it? Is the foundation really that fragile? Is it all just resting on one player's knee and the coin flip of a one-score game? Or is there something more solid underneath all that?
And what side is the source taking?
Oh, they are absolutely selling the idea that the foundation is solid, but, and this is a huge but, their entire argument for that resilience rests almost religiously on one person.
Number 15.
Number 15 under center. They basically brush aside all the other problems, the bad luck, the roster issues, and they pivot straight to the savior narrative. It all comes down to Mahomes.
And this is where their argument gets really, really bullish. They call him, quote, the greatest QB walking the planet right now. No hedging, no debate.
None. And they say he is the single reason the Chiefs are always in the mix when he's healthy. They even go a step further, saying he has dragged teams to Lombardi single-handedly.
Which suggests the talent around him is almost secondary. It's a pretty absolute statement of faith.
It is. But to their credit, they do at least acknowledge the risks. They have to, for credibility. They bring up the controversy around his recovery timeline.
Right, the whole could be September ready, could be a bit later thing, which is everything.
It's everything. And they admit that medical experts are genuinely split on whether he'll lose a step, which for a guy who relies on his mobility is a massive concern.
But after acknowledging all that, they just dismiss it.
Completely. They turn it into a positive. They say he's built different, resilient. They argue the injury will just make him hungrier for 2026. Their conclusion is that as long as he's back, that championship window stays cracked wide open.
So their entire prediction, this whole revenge tour, it all hinges on Mahomes coming back as, well, Mahomes. If he's even 95%, maybe the whole argument falls apart.
That's the so what here,
Yeah.
The source is basically treating Mahomes as this separate force of nature, almost divorced from the rest of the team's problems. And to back this up, they pull out the history books.
The historical comparison.
Yeah, but they call this season an anomaly and then point to the 49ers in the 80s and the Steelers in the 70s as proof. Dynasties have dips, they say, and then they extend.
That's how they get to their big prediction. 12-5 in 2026, AFC West champs. Again, it's quite a leap of faith from 6 and 10.
It is, and we have to push back on that historical analogy because an informed listener should immediately question that.
Why?
Because neither the 70s Steelers nor the 80s 49ers operated under a salary cap.
Oh, that's a huge point.
It's the whole point. They could just hoard talent forever. The modern Chiefs are constantly fighting the cap, losing good players every single year, so citing those teams is, well, it's a bit disingenuous. It ignores the biggest factor in modern parity.
So Mahomes' brilliance has to operate inside a financial straitjacket that Joe Montana never had to deal with.
Exactly. Which is a perfect pivot to the vehicle he's supposed to be returning to. The source might believe in the driver, but they can't ignore the state of the car.
And even they admit it's got problems.
Yeah.
Big problems.
They use a great analogy, actually. They say the roster looks like Swiss cheese with holes everywhere.
No, not encouraging. They do mention some foundational pieces, though, right? The cornerstones?
They do. They name Chris Jones on the D-line, Creed Humphrey at center, Joe Thuney on the O-line. All pro-level guys, so there's a base to build on.
But it sounds like those cornerstones are holding up a pretty leaky roof.
A very leaky roof. The list of needs is long. They say the wide receiver room is thin and desperately needs speedsters who can separate.
So vertical threats, guys who can take the top off a defense.
Right. Then there are cornerback gaps galore. They need an edge rusher, a quick win guy, more penetration on the interior D-line. I mean, the list goes on.
This isn't just tinkering around the edges. These are major structural issues.
They are. And all of that is overshadowed by the single biggest, most catastrophic potential loss.
Travis Kelce.
The legend, as they call him. He's on retirement watch. And if he walks, the source calls that a massive void. You just can't replace a player like that.
Not with one person, no. He's a tight end and a #1 receiver, all in one.
And we can't forget the backup quarterback spot either. The source calls the situation with Carson Wentz or whoever cloudy and not inspiring.
After what happened with Mahomes, you'd think that would be a top priority.
You would. So with all this Swiss cheese, how does the source think they can get from 6 and 10 to a 12 and 5 revenge tour?
The draft pick.
The draft pick and free agency. They see it as a reset button, a retool, not a full teardown. They think they can fix this and fix it fast.
And they even give some specifics on how. They're talking about using that top 10 pick on a stud WR in the mold of Tyreek 2.0, or maybe a lockdown corner.
And in free agency, they mention poaching an edge monster or a big-name receiver like T. Higgins. The message is clear. They need immediate impact players. No development projects. They need guys who can play right now.
This brings us to the third big issue the source raises, and it's not just about the players on the field. It's about the guys on the sideline.
The organizational controversy. Yeah, they argue that the offensive philosophy needs a refresh.
They're calling out Andy Reid, a future Hall of Famer.
They are. They say his scheme got predictable, too many short passes, not enough deep shots. They say fans were, quote, roasting it online.
So it's not just that the players weren't executing, it's that the playbook itself got stale. That's a pretty serious charge.
It is, and it leads directly into the next uncomfortable conversation. Coaching succession. Reid is 67. The source says the clock's ticking.
And they float some names.
Bieniemy or maybe some hot coordinator. The point is they acknowledge that a huge organizational shift could be coming, which just adds another layer of uncertainty to everything.
All of this, the roster holes, the aging coach, the cap space, it's exactly what the doomsayers, as the source calls them, are pointing to.
Absolutely. The pessimists have a lot of ammunition. Tight cap space, key guys getting older, and just the natural gravity of NFL parity that pulls everyone back to the middle.
But the source, after laying all of this out, still holds firm.
They do. They spin the whole thing. This dip, this painful season isn't the end. It shines light on needs, forces evolution. They see it as a necessary catalyst for change.
Forcing them to add more RPOs, more play-action bombs.
Yeah.
To get smarter.
And the poll they ran seems to back up that fan optimism. A shocking 65% still have faith that they'll be contending for a Super Bowl in 2026.
No, despite everything.
Despite everything. And that's the core tension right there. Is the faith in Patrick Mahomes alone enough to overcome all these other systemic flaws? The source clearly thinks so.
So we've really laid out the two sides here from the source. On one hand, you have the argument for a necessary reset, a painful but ultimately healthy evolution, fueled by a top draft pick and a hungry returning superstar.
And on the other hand, you have the argument that parity has finally arrived, that age, cap hits, and the potential loss of a legend like Kelce signal an irreversible end to this era of dominance.
What really stands out from this whole analysis is just how fragile the narrative around a dynasty is in today's media landscape.
It's incredibly fragile. One injury and one bad run of luck in close games, and suddenly years of success are thrown into question. The true test of this dynasty isn't its peak, it's whether it can survive a season like this. A 1-8 run in those tight games.
It leaves you with a really provocative thought to chew on. The source puts so much emphasis on the quick fixes, a big free agent signing, a top 10 pick to patch up this Swiss cheese roster.
Right, the immediate correction.
So you have to ask yourself, how much can a modern team truly rely on those quick fixes versus just banking on the sheer force of will of one transcendent player? Can Patrick Mahomes really drag a team back to a Lombardi year after year, no matter who else is on the field? That's the multi-million-dollar gamble the Chiefs are making heading into this so-called revenge tour.